you about their expansion plans into that unit. You may recall that VIP Barbershop was located there for decades, and they relocated about a year and a half ago. And also, they have a tenant, JDN Heating and Air Conditioning at 314 South Main Street. So the quick version of that is that the southern portion of this shopping center existed for quite a few years, and then Mr. Kohler, who had served as the mayor of Bartlett for some period of time in the past, built the addition where the still is currently located. And eventually, there were a series of restaurants there. You may recall one of them closed. The building fell into foreclosure. Mr. Leo and Mr. Gaylord purchased it, and I worked pretty closely with them about 5 years ago, or is it closer to 6 now, through 2013 and 2014 to open the still. So I wanted to clarify for this that this is a BEDA grant application for just their portion of the building, not the southern portion of the building that's been owned by Mr. Kruger for maybe only he knows how long, but several decades. So in terms of the BEDA application, which I'm gonna flip through a lot of pages to get to, you may have noticed they included a lot of information about their prior build-out, and the petitioner is very well aware that any program like BEDA starts at a certain point in time, thus the $300,000 or so that he included details on the prior build-out that they did years ago. And it was really just more for informational purposes, as well as the information about the property taxes that they've paid over the years. What is in the petition tonight that I'm going to flip over to is a detailed quote in the amount of $52,535 from Lionheart Construction with 9 work items, including expanding into the space, adding additional seating, other items that will beautify the exterior, including updating the facade and upgrading the parking lot lighting. So here I am. Here's his cover letter where he explains again that they own that portion of the shopping center and that they have plans to upgrade the facade with Lionheart Construction. And as I mentioned, he included a lot of photos of over the years ago how they converted what was really a very dilapidated space into what is now a real nice looking restaurant, the Still. And here's a few pictures of their whiskey bar and some of the work they did with the walls. But again, for tonight's purposes, I'm gonna move forward to this quote that details doing some work on flooring, painting, replacing some shingles on the front and upgrading the facade, $6,750. Doing some work for the rear fire-rated commercial steel doors. So that, again, is eligible cost for interior build-out and code upgrades for fire safety. That's about $5,000. You see doing some work on the drive-it and metal corrugated sheeting, some work on the door, $4,700. This is part of their expansion. Repairing and replacing some bricks in the rear of the building, priming and painting, and expanding the lighting into the vacant unit. You can see here the quote made just a few days ago for $52,535. The BEDA application, as I think most BEDA applicants have done at this point, is requested the maximum of $50,000. We explained that these are typically paid out in percentages, so we are not recommending that full amount, but we're recommending $15,000. from the BEDA grant. Let me go back to the staff report here. So we do feel that this upgrade would fit nicely into the what we're trying to accomplish in the downtown, like some of the other BEDA applicants that we have here, some of the other new projects that we have coming into the downtown. We think for spending $52,000 on this, $15,000 amounts to about 28% of it. And again, Mr. Leo's here, and I'm sure would be happy to answer any questions you have, so I can answer any questions of staff at this time, or you may ask questions of the petitioner.
Where are we as far as, so this is the first one of the year, right? The fiscal year?
Yeah, this is the first one.
Is the budget the same?
No, we increased the budget this year to, I think, Scott, it's $250,000 this year. Part of putting the budget together was actually anticipating the second BEDA grant that we'll be presenting tonight, as well as some others that we've been working on and that we're anticipating. But you're correct. As of today, we have $250,000 available on that line item.
To Mr. Leo, first of all, I want to say thanks for being a great member of the community. Our family has certainly enjoyed your restaurant, and I know many other residents of the community, those from outside the community, have enjoyed your hospitality as well. So thanks for your commitment to our town. And again, I think that any entity, whether it's a restaurant or service industry or retail industry that is in our downtown area and committing to stay here and now expanding, I mean, I think really sings to the opportunity that you see here. But my question to staff, and I think, Mr. Leo, you're going to be able to help me understand this, is because you've got two separate owners of one particular building, my concern is with the facade, and certainly beautifying that is terrific. I mean, while it's an iconic strip center, it does need some improvements. But now we're going to wind up with a tale of two cities here, and we're going to have one side that looks pretty dilapidated, and you're going to be obviously the new shiny kid in that strip mall.
It was definitely our concern too, because at first we thought about flattening up the facade in the top to kind of modernize it, because as you drive into town, it does look a little out of place. It looks like something that would be in Arizona, for example, with the shingles. So we kind of went with a compromised solution where we would change the shingles out with a different type of material that's slotted in black in color probably, or a terracotta color, and tie that into, we have a part that's a drivet and use the same material. And then we thought of turning the bricks into more of an earth tone color. It's still going to be different, but it won't flow that much different than the person next door. It's just going to look newer and cleaner. And then for the windows, we want to take that aluminum color and turn it into a black trim.
And it sounds very attractive, but it still doesn't address the concern that we're going to be having one strip mall with, and it's going to look like Bartlett's, like,
Yeah, and
providing certain provisos to some, but not to others in terms of beautification. And I think that's particularly important when we address the TOD and, just how this proposed renovation would actually parlay into that continuity plan that's within the TOD.
Right. I think speaking from the village standpoint, there's a couple points we would make with that, because we do understand the somewhat oddity of having one strip center like that from a visible standpoint with two owners. One of them, like I mentioned, Mr. Kruger, back when there was a downtown TIF, was constantly making improvements to his center. As this portion of the center actually fell into disrepair and foreclosure. So in those years, a lot of times we had the southern portion of that center kind of outshine their portion. Another point, so now we're wanting the whole thing to look nice. We don't want to hold back somebody who owns approximately half of it from improving their portion of the center. And that the other point I would make is that I would hope to be sitting here and say within the next couple of years with some new purchaser on the on the south end of the center, doing some upgrades as well. When we use the BEDA program also as an incentive with a lot of the businesses we're working with. It's like another, it's another tool in our toolbox. So as people come in and are interested in purchasing that portion of the center, and we haven't had any real serious interest yet, but when we do, we're going to definitely encourage them to make use of this program and to come before you and try to upgrade it to match the side that they're doing. I just don't think at this point in time, Mr. Kruger's ready to do that. So that's, it would be nice if the whole center was being done at once, but by the same token, we want to encourage them to upgrade their portion of it.
Is it a similar linear footage from your property?
We're about a third.
About a third, okay.
There is he's got a slight elevation difference.
Okay,
So that might distinguish it a little bit from ours. If you look
Okay.
at the picture that was in there, it's
right.
got a little bit of a.
And I'm sorry, what was the cost of the exterior renovation?
Combined, everything was about 52,000.
That's the interior and
That
the
includes it both, the
Okay.
interior, exterior.
Yeah, I'm kind of interested in really the exterior and to see if, not that we're casting any nets, but if we're in August and we've got this, we've still got still got funding in the BEDA program, is there an opportunity to reach out to Mr. Kruger and see if he'd participate in exterior renovation so there's continuity in that building?
Oh, absolutely. There's ample opportunity to. I can speak from knowing him very well for the whole time I've worked here. I think he's more interested in trying to divest himself of that center at this point than to really, really a similar situation like the Gorskys were in for years.
Sure.
I don't think he's prepared to make this type of investment.
So
in
you
the
think
facade.
he's interested in selling? Is that what you're saying? When you say
It's been for
divest?
sale for a while.
Okay.
Not extremely aggressively,
Sure.
but
Maybe we can encourage him that, for the cost of a lipstick, he might be able to sell that property? Know what I mean?
We'll
Well-
definitely follow up with him. It's been a while since I've spoken with Mr. Kruger, but knock wood, he's kept his center pretty much filled and he's maintained it well. I'm not going to say it's maybe the best looking center in town, but he's one of the best people at maintaining his property.
Great, great. Well, and again, I think that would speak well to helping him, make a faster sale if the exterior was freshened up. And it seems like, and again, I don't know, forgive me, Mr. Leo, I didn't
That's not a problem.
divide those numbers out pretty clearly, but if there's an opportunity to get him to bite on improving his exterior as Mr. Leo is doing his improvements, we've got continuity, and I just think it creates a lot of opportunity for both owners.
We'll reach out to him very
That'd be
soon.
great.
Yeah, Scott and I have talked about that before,
Great.
trying to bring up the whole center.
Excellent.
That might allow him to sell the property.
Right,
Yeah.
right,
As well, if it's. more-
right. I think it's a great investment.
Yeah.
I mean, it's what I think any other business owner or any other residential owner would want to do. They would want to put some
Yeah,
curb
somebody's
appeal on
already
it.
done the work, they have the people to do it, the materials picked out, he can apply for the BEDA grant, and,
Right.
Yeah, maybe first, reach out to Lionheart and see what it would cost to extend it.
I'm
To
sorry?
some degree, to extend the facade at least, the renovation of that, and so he knows that it's not going to be that much of a.
Right, and yeah, that's why
I
I
don't
was
think,
interested
if
in
we're
the
52
exterior
grand and
cost,
with an
and
interior.
perhaps even the contractor who's doing your exterior work would, provide some scales of economy in that kind of exterior renovation.
Absolutely. We will do that.
Yeah, Tony, if I may, I think the best of both worlds would be for both owners to do it at the same time. That would be great. But if you go into any areas, there always has to be somebody to start the renovation. Somebody has to take some time and money and renovate. And here we have an owner who wants to do that. Now, what happens usually in an area is that once someone starts renovating, usually it'll pick up to the next person. We don't know when or how, but I think starting the renovation is where you have to be. You have to start renovating, and I think you're doing a good job.
Agree.
So I think this looks really exciting. We live close by this still. Do you have an estimate about how much more business you plan on doing with this additional space?
I think we can add, we've been there 5 years right now, and after 5 years, you really need to look at the concept and tweak it a little bit. And what we want to do to the building and the expansion, these are things we wanted to do 5 years ago. We just didn't have the opportunity then, but we feel now that it's the right time to do that. I think we can add 15 to 20 seats in the new area, so I think there's about a 25% increase in sales. But more importantly for us, it expands the bar area, where there's a lot of bar options in town now, so this will allow us to compete very
So
well.
it'd be like almost like a two-sided bar, like a U-shaped bar?
Yeah,
is
like
that-
right now, it's more, I would
Yeah.
call it more of a dining room bar. We get
Right.
a good number of people, but serves a dining room. It's not really intended for people who want to come and spend the night and just have drinks with friends. It's just not the space.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I just came from there, first time there today. That's why I was a little late trickling in here, doing my research. And it was the outside that, I've only lived here for 2 years, but that mall, for whatever reason, just not inviting. I was shocked at how good the food was and how good
You
of a
know, we hear
restaurant
that
it
a
was
lot
inside.
because of the mall.
I'm sorry?
We hear that a lot because the exterior doesn't do it to us.
Yeah, I think, you know, we can call it lipstick if we want, but that and a little more space, you guys will do really well.
Especially after the chiropractor built that beautiful building and the stone she put on the outside. It kind of ties in with the town center,
Yeah,
and we kind of like, we stick out a little bit.
yeah, no, I think it's a great plan.
Or we don't get noticed, which is sad as well.
Will the gaming be moved to a different area then, if that's going to be the thorough way?
Yeah, we want to move that to the back of the barber
Okay,
shop, out of the
great.
way.
Yeah.
So the whole front of the space would be for high tops. And then eventually, you know, down the road, if that works, we can always knock that window out and put like a garage door and have some outdoor.
Excellent.
That's awesome. And then you said there's also a stage that you were putting in?
We tried that a couple of weeks ago. We had actually a friend of my partner, he's actually in the BEDA tribute band, and he came in and he played. It really worked out well.
Nice.
I can attest to being a longtime customer there for 5 years, and Jim has talked about doing an expansion almost as long as I can remember talking with them. And I think this is one of those things that I'm hoping that this newer program is helping to facilitate, because they called, we did, remember a few months ago, we told you how we did a blast about it to all the businesses in town, and that generated a few inquiries, including theirs, and another meeting with another existing business we have tomorrow. So when you're always up there stressing that we let it be known to our existing businesses, this is one of those that came out of that, because of course they're on our email blast list. So I just wanted to add that. They've been talking about wanting to do an expansion for quite some time. It didn't just come up recently.
So I have another question, and it's regarding the upgraded parking lot lighting. So we've got a big common parking lot. Are you only going to be upgrading the parking lighting that's,
Yeah, we've got these
yeah,
lights up.
see, I'm
But it really-
struggling with this, staff.
They point into our parking lot.
Yeah.
There'll be some residual light going into the area next door just because of the way the lights are.
Right.
I mean, there's lighting ordinances, and when somebody comes in to upgrade their lighting, it has to make sure it doesn't emit a certain amount past a property line. It can't be obnoxious to nearby neighbors, but we want it to be well lit and have the downtown look lit up and
And I'm
active in
all
that.
for that. What I'm concerned is one beautifully upgraded, well-lit section of parking lot and something that's not so well.
We'll call him tomorrow and maybe go in a little more depth with Mr. Kruger about what Mr. Leo's doing. It will not be the first time that we called Mr. Kruger to encourage him to spend some money on his center, but
Right.
we'll do it again, and maybe this will be a different conversation because we have a little more detail now.
Right.
With estimates, so we'll do that, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think particularly, Mr. Leo, I mean, obviously, you're investing heavily again in your business, and it's not just in the interior, but the exterior, and that's really what I want the community to see, is that there is pride of ownership. I mean, you've got this right down to tuck pointing, which I think is impressive. My concern for you would be, would you have any concern about somebody that's not being as fastidious about their property and how it may impact your business?
Definitely, I would be a concern, but when I look at both properties, he has a different brick. Every time, well, I used to see him a lot more, he would always be working on his property, like cleaning up and doing some maintenance. And it is well-maintained on the outside, it's just that it's a little dated, but his side is well-maintained.
Great. Yeah.
How does this fit with the form-based coding?
I mean, this particular building doesn't fit in
At all?
with the form-based.
Okay. So even if we implement that, there's not like something that has to be,
No, that will pertain to all new construction or
Okay.
like a significant redevelopment.
okay,
Let's say if somebody was buying both sides and going to demolish either the whole center or decide they wanted to put on a second and/or third floor, that's kind of when the form-based
Okay.
code would kick in. This isn't really a prime example of a form-based code.
Tracy, how do you suggest
Sir,
we
your-
proceed here?
Your design is really striking. Was this your idea, or did you have a design company help you along? What was?
On the millwork,
Yeah.
it started approximately 10 years ago on a chance trip through the Smoky Mountains, through Gettysburg, and we saw some of that millwork, and we came back here, my partner and I, we just we did it from scratch with the contractor, and said, would it be nice to do this type of bevel, this type of look on the window frames? He came up with the rock. So it's something we came up on our own,
Great,
and it was a lot of fun doing it 5 years ago.
great.
Yeah, I really like it.
Are there any other comments or questions for Mr. Leo or staff?
Well, I was going to ask, how do we proceed here? We got to,
Well, I believe that staff is,
applicant.
yeah, I believe that staff is asking us to approve the grant for $15,000 so that Mr. Leo can be assured of that and he can move forward.
Right, a recommendation goes to the village board committee. They'll review the meeting minutes and have their own questions as well. We're asking for a recommendation.
and hopefully by then you guys will be able to talk to Mr. Kruger.
Absolutely, Mr. Kruger, Eddie Kruger, yeah.
Well, I think that Mr. Leo has demonstrated, commitment to the community, and I would not want to, preclude a vote for him to proceed based on that discussion with Mr. Kruger. But, certainly with being very optimistic that Mr. Kruger would see the value in participating in an exterior renovation or refurbishment that may help him better sell his property. And again, perhaps even apply for the BEDA grant as well. So may I have a motion to approve the BEDA application as presented?
yes, motion to approve as presented.
Yeah.
A second.
I'm sorry, excuse me one moment. We have our first motion to approve from Commissioner Gansey. Is there any further discussion?
A second.
If there's no discussion now, I'll entertain a second. Thank you. All right, with that, if we can, for those approving, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Staff, if you'd please, I believe this would go to the board, the village
Right,
board.
the next step is to go to the village board committee of the whole, and we'll alert you to the evening where they'll be considering your application.
I say thank you now, and I'm
Oh, well, thank
very
you.
excited about
No,
this.
and we are too, Mr.
Very
Leo.
excited.
Thank you very much.
thank you, Tony, and your team.
You're making good
Welcome.
pulled pork, too.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jim. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, next on our agenda, item number 6, we do have a BEDA application for the streets of Bartlett.
Yes, this one has quite a bit of detail to it, so I'm going to walk you through it as quickly as I can, and meanwhile, then try to answer any questions you have, as well as the petitioner and his son here tonight to answer some questions. So this is the ongoing redevelopment of Bartlett Plaza that I now call Streets of Bartlett. It's now to be known as Streets of Bartlett. Mr. Rafidia was here before you last fall prior to his closing on the acquisition of the property, and at that point was telling you some of the plans and thoughts that he had for the major renovation. I sincerely hope you've all had a chance to take a look at that, because it amazes me every day of the week that I'm here. If you come by on the weekends, it doesn't matter, you'll see probably 20 people working on this project. So it's a total overhaul of an older center, and but I'll get to the details. Due to multiple factors, you all know that the Bartlett Fresh Market space has been vacant since fall of 2010. When I was last talking about it here last fall, I was talking about 8 years. Now it's going on 9 years vacant, so the longest-term vacancy in the village. But we're very close right now at this point in time to getting multiple tenants into it. Through his holding company, our group Properties and Management, Mr. Rafidia purchased and improved multiple shopping centers throughout Illinois, Prospect Heights, in Palatine, Roselle, Montgomery, several in Addison. And anyway, like I mentioned, he closed on the property, I believe it was May 31st, and is now very well underway into the redevelopment of the center. Every time I was working on this memo, I would take a picture, but then I would drive by the next day and it would look different. So I think this picture is probably from last week of one of the facade, portions of the facade renovation that's going on right now. He did come before you, as I mentioned, last fall, and got approved for a $50,000 BEDA grant, and later on went before the village board, who ultimately approved that application. Since he's come here before you, last time he obtained 7 special use permits and 4 variations from the village board. Those didn't come before the EDC, but came before the Plan Commission and the Zoning Board of Appeals. Those include packaged liquor sales for Armanetti's Liquor Store, serving alcohol, including wine tastings, a recreation and amusement establishment, live entertainment, a banquet hall facility, which isn't necessarily a thing that is coming, but he sought approval to bring one in case there was going to be one, outdoor seating, and also a pet daycare facility he gained approval for. The variations included a reduction in parking requirements, increasing the monument sign area. I didn't include pictures of it today, but you might have noticed there's some large pillars going up along Devon, where it's going to be the location of the new monument signs. Also increasing the monument sign height and reducing the monument sign setback. Again, if you drive past there and notice those pillars being put up, those are for those new monument signs. The tenants of Bartlett Plaza for many, many years that I've been here have clamored for more signage, more prominent signage, and we thank Mr. Rafidia for accommodating them in the redevelopment of the center. So the second BEDA application, both of his applications, the one you saw last fall, I think September, October, as well as this one, both request $250,000. But again, he's been made aware that $50,000 is our maximum BEDA grant. I did mention to you last fall also, because he had mentioned to us that he was going to come in for a second application. I want to talk about that just for a minute. that the former Bartlett Plaza, new Streets of Bartlett, is comprised of 2 separate PIN numbers. And one of the things I put into your packet was both really the original site plan for it, as well as tax bills reflecting that there's 2 separate PINs. So one of the reasons, like when we had the TIF back in the day, we would sometimes have multiple TIF applications from Bartlett Plaza based on the 2 separate PINs. And as you can see here, the building that houses the former grocery store, along with the Montessori school and the dance school, is 1 PIN -047. And then the large L-shaped portion anchored by Pasta Mia on one end, and the Ace there in the middle of it is a separate PIN ending in 042. So just wanted to clarify that for you, that it's 2 separate PIN numbers. The attached, I'm not going to walk you through all of the attached contracts, but as you can see, his application, he puts down that he will spend $2 million on the upgrades and redevelopment of Bartlett Plaza. The contracts that he attached for this particular application amounted to about $1.1 million, but it covered mostly, basically exterior renovations that you see going on right now. Remember, BEDA grant applies to exterior renovations as well as interior build-out, code compliance. I'd have to sit here for an hour to tell you about how many code problems there were with the former grocery space. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Rafidia soon, but to let you know that the build-out cost to convert that old dilapidated grocery store into 3 modern storefronts that meet all current code requirements is very extensive. So we speak almost every day, and I wanted to point out that even though you don't see a full $2 million worth of contracts attached, I believe it comes out to 1.117 million, that he has assured us he'll turn in once all the interior renovations are done. He understands that in order to get all the BEDA funds released, he'll turn in the receipts showing the $2 million worth of expenditures. So I'm going to wrap up by saying this is a photo. This is my favorite one. This shows what just maybe 6 or 8 weeks ago was just a big, rather unsightly blank wall that he's now subdivided, or well into subdividing into 3 units, just like he told us that he would do. The corner unit is where Armanetti's is going to be moving in the coming months. The space in the middle of it is going to be a future restaurant space that will, again, allow him to elaborate upon. And there will be one more smaller space that we're also discussing various tenants to bring into. So things have changed a little bit in terms of how the project was presented last October in terms of the possible tenants. All I can really say is it's an exciting project to see that place progress so quickly from day to day. I was over there today and saw people working on the facade. You'll see it if you go over there, the dramatic changes that have been made. And again, Mr. Rafidia is here, his son Jeremy, right? Jeremy's here today. And they'll be the ones answering any questions about their project. Scott and I will answer any questions you have of staff about it. And we're recommending maximum BEDA grant of $50,000 for this application.
Do we need to invite them up to the?
If you have questions of
Yeah.
Mr. Rafidia, yeah, he's ready.
Hello. My name is Manny Rafidia. This is my baby son, Jeremy. He's 26.
How are you guys?
Good.
I brought him along because he's getting into the real estate business, and I'm trying to have him do this kind of conversation on his own. So go ahead and tell us a little bit, and everyone.
Well, what questions do we have?
Well, I think this is a pretty big project for you.
Sure is, yes.
I think your son will gain a lot of experience from this. Is this your first beginning in a project like this?
It is. We opened up a pizza restaurant about a year ago in another property of ours in Palatine, and it was kind of a crash course. We did a build out and built it out from, the vanilla box, and opened up a restaurant and ran it and hired people, did the service, the whole shebang. So I did a year-long crash course there, and so now we're jumping into this. So it's kind of a little.
Sold it for profit.
We sold it for profit as well within that year. So it's kind of like a little mini crash course to a bigger one. So yes, it's kind of the beginning.
So where do you stand? Is that completely done now? The one that you're talking about, is it all completed as far as leased out?
Yes, it is.
It's 100% leased out?
Right, our property in Palatine. Yes.
That's why you're smiling?
Yeah. That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I'm really excited about the project. I actually live right across the street, so as soon as I walk out my front door, like every day, we're looking at everything, and my kids are super excited. We go to all the existing businesses there now. We're super excited to see what else is going to come in. One thing like we noticed, just because we're walking around there all the time, is when we walk up Bartlett Road there, there's doesn't look like there's any signage other than they have like the banners up in the one
Right.
grassy area. So I guess
Yeah.
we were just curious to hear like if there was any kind of plans or things that you could do to help promote the businesses from that angle.
We would love to. Yeah, we would love to put a sign
Well,
there.
right now, we have engaged into 5 new leases and have not lost any of the existing leases. So we brought on the Arminetti, which probably going to be opening in about a month from now. We're opening a new concept restaurant called One Taco, Two Burritos.
No, one taco, dos tequilas.
Dos tequilas. One taco, dos tequilas. And that's going to be more like a really nice sit-down restaurant and bar. And we're going to have 20 or more TVs in the place, outdoor seating, very authentic Mexican menu that will serve a good, food, spicy and different. We're taking on someone as a silent, what I always call him in the beginning, as a silent partner in terms of we just bring him in as a working capital people, a husband and wife that had their own business in the city. So we invite him in to become our partners, but not though in, say, ownership, just in profit. So with that said, down the road in 2 or 3 years, when they become fully knowledgeable and eligible, we will sell them half of the real restaurant. And the reason we do that is because people with experience and they want to work hard, but they don't have the money to invest in this kind of caliber of business, which will probably end up costing about $300,000. We are willing to do that as a step one for them to start and then to take over and move on. So this is our second place, which is called One Taco, Dos Tequilas. Sorry about the misspelling in the beginning.
Sorry, this is your second restaurant with that concept?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Throughout my lifetime, as I mentioned last year, I've opened and sold over maybe 50 restaurants, and I owned at least, I would say, maybe 100 different properties. But my cliche is the same, that I buy distressed properties, take them over, and invest heavily in improving them before I get the tenants. Not like as most other real estate developers, they always wait for the tenant to show up, then they start spending the money to improve it. I do things differently because I believe that I can always find tenancy for these spaces. The third tenant which we signed a lease today for is an ice cream shop, specialty Italian ice cream. The lady is local she lived here for 30 years, and she's importing everything from Italy as far as the equipment and all the ice cream and the recipes. I mean, it's really out of this world. Fourth place is we're relocating Delicious from this space here, and there's two reasons why. First, not because we're stealing him from different property and bringing him to our property. The reason why is he's going from 1,200 square feet to 2,600 square feet. That's on one hand. On the other hand, he's going to have a hood. He doesn't have a hood now. He cooks everything on electrical, and I heard that from him that the people usually in the apartments upstairs always complain about the food smell and they can't sleep. So that is our fourth. Our fifth is that we are engaging with the art center, Bartlett Art Center to move there.
Yeah, the Arts
Okay.
in Bartlett.
Yeah, to move in there, and we're advancing. We went to one of their board meeting at the library, and it looks good. So having said all this, if all this happens and takes place, we will end up with 2 small spaces remaining empty. And out of the 33,000 original grocery store, now that we carved out 10,000 square feet, we only will have 23,000 square feet out of that grocery store vacant. Now, we're engaging with Planet Fitness Talk, Orange Crunch, and that's the 2 major players right now. Hopefully, we can get one of them.
What was the second one called?
Crunch Fitness,
Crunch Fitness, okay.
Orange Fitness, I'm all over with that.
Planet Fitness and Crunch Fitness
Awesome.
are in talks. and
Right.
With us.
See, I told you take over.
So I did want to,
So hopefully that will work. So now comes in the big apple, that pie that we've been looking for is Aldi. Now, Aldi's been, according to staff here, been out twice already looking at the site to put their store up in the front. We put together a very extensive marketing study for them, and we also did engineering study to show them how the building will sit there. And we're just doing little final touches on this whole thing before we send it out to Batavia, to Mr. Spear there, rather than going through the broker. Because I guess the broker, we attempted a couple of times and never returned call. So now we're going directly to the, to the corporate and trying to see if we can invite him to come out. Though I'm more reluctant to, to push this quickly because I wanted to advance, or we wanted to advance with more improvements. So as they come out to look, they'll see the real thing. So that's all it is. I mean, the signs are coming up soon. They're supposed to be up, the new monument sign, 2 of them should be up on the 15th. The parking lot will be done probably by the end of the month or the beginning of September. The lightings are all removed, all the pole lights, the new lights are ready to be installed, but we just want to grind the parking lot first because with all the dust coming out, we don't want it to ruin or, put dents in those new beautiful poles. So for everything that I talked about last year, and I remember saying, I'm going to finish it before the end of 2020. I think I'm going to finish it before the end of 2019, the way we're being fortunate with the, contractors that are working for us. And, everybody shows up to work, and like Tony says, there's always 20 people working. And I always say, if there's 20 people working, things going to happen, and that's what's happening right now.
And just so the board knows, our family goes to the martial arts, and she mentioned you, Jeremy. She was like, oh, it's been just great communicating with them. She's like, it's been like a really positive experience for her. I know.
We're trying to engage with the tenants initially.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Because sometimes they might feel a little unwelcomed with landlords, they think somewhat intimidating, so we want them to know that, you know, yes, we're doing a lot of renovations, no, we're not gonna increase your rent, we're here to help and be nice and work well with you guys, that's our goal, really.
Yeah, that's what I noticed.
Yeah, and I think that's especially important because we do have some legacy businesses in there as well. I think
Oh,
about,
yeah.
specifically, I think about Pasta Mia, I think about Dr. Kammerer's office being there.
Right.
So it's important that, you know, we keep them happy. That's our job too. But I
You know what,
appreciate the,
Pasta Mia, actually, when we walked in, the first time to talk to him, he says, well, you know, would you let me put a patio out there? He says, yeah, why not? He goes, well, we don't have the space. I said, guess what? You're going to have a patio. He says, next year, right? I said, no. In 2 weeks, you're going to have a patio. And he says, no way. How are you going to do that? I said, we already got the approval on zoning, so basically, you just have to get your permit, and we're going. So I don't have a contractor for excavation. I don't have a contractor for concrete. I don't have someone have to remove the tree. And I said, all of that will happen in less than a week. And I had everybody lined up for him. In 2 weeks, he had a patio out there.
lovely.
That's just one example how we work
you,
with tenants and try to help them out.
Yeah, well, I applaud your, not just your business acumen, Mr. Rafidia, but the style that you have. I think that it's rather magnanimous in the business environment today, particularly in the tough retail and service industries, for a landlord to come in and say, we really want to support not just our existing businesses, but provide opportunity for new businesses to come in. And rather than taking the McDonald's franchise approach to bring in somebody that understands a specific cuisine, mentor them, and, help them develop their own business acumen so that they too are successful. I think that's terrific, and I think it's a great model. So, and we're so happy you're here.
I had a quick question, actually, and a comment, Jeremy. If you're going to be a hero in Bartlett if you actually get an Aldi to come in. Just want to let you know, keep going on that. I'll be very proud of you. The parking lot, I've heard different things about. Are there plans for construction on the parking lot, or is it going to be kind of as is?
The parking lot, actually, there's a contract there, and
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
they have it.
That could be a,
Yeah, we're gonna redo the entire parking lot, take out about 2 inches, 2.5 inch of the existing service, level it up that's why you see a lot of piles of gravel now, that's to get the leveling. Then we're gonna resurface it, and.
are you building on it, was kind of where I was going.
The building gonna go in the front, you're talking about all these buildings in the future?
Yeah, I guess that's.
Well,
Yeah, so
that's
it
gonna
would
go,
be.
Yeah, it would go on, kind of near where Pasta Mia is, on that
Okay.
grass area to the,
That's the reduced,
the grass area will be the parking lot.
yeah, to the left of that.
To the left, yeah.
Yeah, over that way.
okay, all right. Sorry, I missed that. Great.
Mr. Rafidia also agreed to do the light poles that he's ordering, if I'm correct, match the downtown light poles as well. So
Love the continuity. Super important to our TOD plan.
it was a good
Thank you.
suggestion.
I'm not sure if any of you have been, just like the last couple of days or week, to the center, but we have made a lot of, the facade, we're gonna be done with the facade by the end of this month. And that is almost 1,000 linear foot of facade at about 12 foot high. So that's a lot of facade to be completed in the 3 months.
Agreed.
period.
Agreed. Are there any other comments, questions for Mr. Rafidia or staff? So, staff, I'd just like to reconfirm that you're requesting that the commission entertain a motion to approve Mr. Rafidia's BEDA application grant in the amount of $50,000.
Exactly, that's what we're requesting.
Thank you. So at this time, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the grant application as presented. May I? Motion. Is there discussion? May I have a second, please? Second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any oppositions? Nay. Abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you, staff. Thank you, Mr. Affidia. Thank you, Jeremy.
Hope we'll see you soon.
Yes, you will.
See you later, Manny. Thanks, Jeremy.
It's very exciting.
We've spent many nights here talking about the potential, redevelopment of that center and who to attract to the old grocery space. So it's nice to see something happening over there.
Do you guys have any pulse on what all these response may be?
It's the biggest rumor going through the town now. The best way that I can characterize it is that we continue sending them a lot of information. They continue expressing some interest, but by no means have committed to going to the site. But they're generally glad to see the rapid pace of the redevelopment, that it's really happening, not just something that we're telling them is going to happen or might happen, but is actually happening. So I think Scott and I usually sometimes let 1 week go by without contacting them, but really never two. So they still have some interest in the space, but by no means are they committed to it.
Has there been any talk about, and if I should ask Tim this, but like with the green space, like kind of have like a gathering area? Like I feel like when I go to like some of the different, Arboretum's completely different, but even we were in Wheaton yesterday and there's like a fountain and like outdoor fireplace type things. And it seems like it brings people to the area and then maybe they patronize some businesses.
They don't really have plans that reflect that at Streets of Bartlett. Most of the events type of community gathering, things like that are always in Bartlett Park, or occasionally we'll have something at Bartlett Town Center. He's all about filling the spaces and bringing in the business, but he has talked about doing an ice skating rink there over the winter
Oh, neat.
in the parking area.
Okay.
So that, wasn't going to put him on the spot about that, but it's something that he's definitely, he brought up to wanting to do before we brought it up to him. So he recognizes the value in not just, filling the business spaces, but making it a more comfortable and more inviting setting. I knew he was trying to get an ice cream shop in, didn't write that in the report, so it was nice to learn that tonight along with everybody here, that there's going to be an ice cream shop there in the small space. So it'll be Armanetti's on the corner, the taco and tequila restaurant directly next to it, and then the small space I would call kind of in the back area, more like near Berteau, would be that ice cream shop. So right away, he's going to turn this old, what used to be just a blank wall of empty space over here into the Armanetti's wine store, the taco and tequila place, and then all the way on the end of it will be the ice cream shop. And for those of you who hadn't heard it prior to tonight, Delicious had signed a lease to move over there as well.
Well, I appreciate that he's actually turning that plaza into almost like a destination center, which is, I think, going to be great, especially for families.
If you're familiar with any of his other shopping centers, in Roselle over there on Nergi, it's always packed. So that's really, his business model is the same when I met him 2 years ago as what he tells you tonight. He's going to probably fill every space there.
Tony just said it, but I was going to add, even working here for as long as I have, it amazes me the development process. We first met this gentleman in November of 2017. So we're almost on 2 years here. So a project of this nature sometimes takes years to come to
Now it's going
fruition.
fast.
Yeah,
Until you
yeah,
walk out, right?
yeah, initially it does. It feels a little bit like, feathers today, chicken tomorrow. But, yeah, I'm really, really excited about this.
Well,
One comment, not a Debbie Downer, but a concern, is that entrance off of Berteau into that parking lot, if there's gonna be ice cream there and kids standing in line, that type of thing. It's usually a rough corner where people turn in off of Berteau pretty sharp. So just my 2 cents worth.
I mean, we'll keep a,
Perhaps when they stripe it, it might be one way going the opposite direction, I'm not sure, but just a comment, been there 26.
It's actually, Tony was right when he said that end spot, because that's what we had initially discussed. But when I was out with him just now, it's actually going to be the interior of Bartlett Plaza near the post office.
The ice
Great.
cream shop?
great.
Yeah, that's a much better spot.
Yeah, and he always tells us not to beat around the bush with them and just tell them, what it is that we're thinking or what we want. So if there's ever going to be any traffic flow problems or danger, anything like that, we'll just tell them right away. Well, another thing I want to tell you about them, again, having done this 19 years, I've never had a shopping center owner. He puts his cell phone number on the center for any spaces available. You call him at that cell phone number that I have memorized, he answers it himself. So, it's not, there's no layers of management or other brokers to go through representing him. You just call him if there's a problem and he fixes it. And there's been problems already I won't delve into, but he took care of them immediately.
Well, is there anything that the EDC or perhaps other commissions within the village can do to help support his pitch to Aldi? Letters of recommendation, our village
I
wants
mean,
that?
we'll think about that. I think you're doing what supports his endeavor through when we first pitched the BEDA program here at a meeting a few years ago and then to the board, what I remember talking about was trying to fill the grocery space, trying to fill the old Bartlett tap, trying to get something done at Lucky Jack's. We had kind of our punch list of properties that we wanted to do. And so, I mean, this program exactly is targeted for that. When we met with them, as Scott alluded to, before we even had the BEDA program, and we were talking with you about how we had some people in mind who, were looking for incentives to do projects. Really, you just met one of them. And we still have meetings all the time where we tell people about it, trying to get something kind of bigger done. So, I mean, to answer your question, I mean, you're doing, I think, what, by supporting the program and continuing it is a big help. And then, when we shift back into maybe talking about the marketing of the village and some of the stuff we do, like Small Business Saturday, that really helps drive customers to his center. If he does the ice skating rink, we're going to have to do, all of us, staff, commissioners, everybody, to get the word out, share it on your social media, try to fill these spaces. It's pretty exciting getting these restaurants and an ice cream shop and Delicious over there. So I just always ask people just to share it with your own wide networks of contacts.
Well, I think that obviously he's putting a very personal push on the Aldi corporate headquarters or their Midwest corporate headquarters in Batavia. And I think the message would be that if they're not interested in an Aldi as the parent company of Trader Joe's, we wouldn't say no to that either.
No, we know.
That was going to be my question. I mean, are we married to the whole Aldi's thing? Obviously, that space is limited, so, you can't put a full-on grocery store, but something like a Trader Joe's, I think, is a smaller space, too.
They've always told us, I mean, not to
That was
throw the
based
wet
on the
blanket
old
on it.
plaza, so
Yeah,
now that
I
you
mean,
see
it's-
this new plaza, this
Yeah.
new
Right.
revamping,
They're-
all these businesses coming in, there might be some appetite there,
Yeah.
They're more like
Aldi is Trader Joe's parent.
They're more like cousins. I've learned they're not exactly one owning another, but it's relatives of the same family. Learned so much about Aldi over the years. So the name means Aldi, Albrecht Discount. So the Albrecht family, who's the wealthiest family in Germany, owns Aldi, and it's a relative of theirs that owns Trader Joe's. It's not really one owning another. It's kind of like Mr. Greco, the pasta and meat guy, and Mr. Greco, the cheese merchant guy. So they're related in that respect.
I think we spoke to Aldi last week. We're not married to Aldi, but it's the one that we're creating the most momentum with. So no, we're not married to them, but the outlet that we had Mr. Raffidia put in as part of this deal, the outlet fits the exact specifications and prototype of Aldi, so it kind of lends itself to that. But if the Aldi thing falls through, we're going to get back on the horn again with every single grocery store we possibly can.
Yeah, well put.
There's actually only 15 Trader Joe's in the state of Illinois that aren't in Chicago, so they have a pretty limited set of stores. And I don't think right now the traffic count and the demographics match what they desire here in downtown Bartlett. But that's not to say that this project wouldn't lift those numbers up and become, and maybe they will become more amenable to that. But certainly, we're not married to it. That's just who we're dating right now.
Well, Aldi would certainly be a good corporate neighbor, and I think that, clearly they have kind of upped their game too in offering, higher quality groceries.
Initially, when he came in, wasn't he talking about like a children's entertainment?
Yeah, one of the reasons we didn't bring it back, this BEDA grant last month, is we were working with them on flushing out some of the tenant mix. He researched that quite a bit, and as he mentioned with the restaurant, he was going to be the primary investor and owner of it. And the more he looked into it, I think, and the people he counts on to do that kind of analysis, they were less than convinced that it would be successful. And the investment amount for that, what he told me, that alone was going to be $1 million build out, and he wasn't ready to commit $1 million to that. So he shifted his gears to bring in somebody else, these fitness type of users. But we looked at we had a meeting probably a month ago specifically about different types of entertainment uses, and he went after a few. We meet with him or talk to him almost every day, so I can tell you things have changed over the months with him. He looked into doing bowling, he looked into doing indoor miniature golf, and then he looked into doing laser tag, and all three basically fell through. So you're right, he was talking about it last year, a big entertainment space with climbing walls and trampolines and stuff like that. We were pretty excited about that.
Is there any further discussion on this? Okay, let's move on to item number 7 on the agenda, which is new business.
So I have a lot, but I'm going to go kind of quickly, and then I'm going to try to just run through things and then answer questions you have, because we haven't formally met for a while. In June, we did have a TOD overlay district open house, and that was on the second Monday of June. I can't recall exactly every commissioner who made it, but I know several commissioners attended that night. So that's that was kind of in lieu of our June meeting. And that TOD overlay district plan, I'm not sure, Scott may know the exact night, but it's going to start coming before the village board soon for their consideration. Hasn't been done yet. But that was something that we did back on June 10th. Even since our last meeting in May, Scott and I traveled to Las Vegas with Mayor Wallace. We were attending the ICSC Recon Convention, the big retail and developer convention they have every year. It's the biggest retailer and developer convention in the world. It's held there every May, attended by about 40,000 people. We participated with Access O'Hare West, as we still are, for a trade show coming up in Chicago in October. So just wanted to point that out. We had a pretty good trade show and a lot of interesting meetings. We put Bartlett in front of a lot of different retailers and developers, and we had some nice follow-up out of that. No exact projects yet that I can point to, but we went out there because we're in the process of selling 7 out of the 11 acres at 59 in Lake Street to an apartment developer. We were out there specifically trying to sell the 4 acres that the village owns right at Lake Street and Route 59. So our meetings in 2019 were a little bit different than 2018, when we were out there trying to pitch 11 acres. Almost nobody wants 11 acres exactly, but the 4 acres can be divided up pretty nicely, and can be a 2, a 1 and a 1, or a 2 and a 2, or whatever. So we were speaking with a lot of people looking at like 1 to 1.5 acre type projects we were pitching it to. Definitely hope to tell you about somebody coming there in the near future. Moving on, we held a Google seminar at Bartlett Hills on July 11th. Again, I think some of the commissioners, I think you made it.
Yes, I was
Stephanie.
there.
I can't
Yes,
remember who
it
else.
was really good.
And Nan. And it was nice. We hired a Google expert that I had heard a presentation in Kane County a few months ago. And we put him in touch with John Castilla of Bartlett Tap to help him with his website and marketing and everything, and did a nice presentation about that. It's something that a lot of businesses, I think about 30 businesses attended that. Moving on, we have a new Cook County Commissioner from whenever the last election was. Tim Schneider was not reelected. There's a new commissioner named Kevin Morrison. He came out here, I'm going to ballpark again, about a month ago, sometime in July. He met with the mayor and Scott, and then Scott and I drove him around the town for a few hours, telling him about different development sites, telling him about our many challenges that we face being in Cook County, in our downtown and some of our development sites. And then later on, a few weeks later, he invited President Preckwinkle for a meeting with representatives from the communities within his district. And I just attended that maybe 3 weeks ago. I'd never met the Cook County president before. And it's nice to have, and I'm telling you, with the challenges we've had in Cook County, we have at least somebody we can easily get into contact with now, somebody who has a real competent staff. He's the youngest commissioner ever, and for Cook County, and just a really great guy. And it's nice to have now somebody we can go to if we have like a major issue in Cook County. Now, he can't change the tax disparity between Cook County and DuPage County and the other collar counties on his own, but we do have a Class 6B application that the village board approved a few months ago for something I'm going to get to soon, which is one of our biggest industrial projects we're ever going to have. And that 6B application has not yet made it to Cook County, so it was nice to be able to explain to him the importance of the Class 6B program, especially for towns like ours that straddle multiple counties. So I'm going to skip my next point into the other one. Speaking of the 6B, we have a project that I've been working on, much like Manny, for 2 years. And it's gone under the title of Project Oak. And what Project Oak is a 400,000 square foot warehouse and distribution center with offices. It's the first big project that's looked in Cook County portion of Brewster Creek Business Park. The reason for that being that there are no undeveloped lots in the DuPage County portion that are large enough to accommodate a building of that size. It's like 4 Home Depots in size, so it's 400,000 square feet. This is not just a Fortune 500 company, this is a Fortune 10 company. And in addition to a Class 6B, We've offered them some other incentives, including building fee waivers and a $50,000 incentive out of the Brewster Creek Business Park TIF, and that's coming up at the next village board meeting. So when the packet goes online later this week for the board meeting next Tuesday, all the information for that project will be in there.
Can you just back that up? You said it was, the incentives again were building fee waiver and $50,000 from where?
Out of the Brewster Creek Municipal TIF Fund.
Okay.
It's not out of there's a municipal portion of the TIF. And like I said, it's been a project a few years in the making. And the village has offered similar incentives previously to some of the projects that Rana has built. So when I put together the TIF budget, we put in a line item for incentives this year. The Brewster Creek TIF can best be described as a very mature TIF. It ends in 2022. There's been just an incredible amount of development in it. So during the recession, there were many, many lean years where it was very difficult and tight to even meet the obligations that have been issued. It was, believe me, it was difficult. We're in the position now where there's a positive balance in the TIF fund. And so anyway, that's part of the incentive that we offer to this Project Oak. And so I wanted to mention that. And it's something that we told the Cook County, we couldn't even tell the Cook County Commissioner yet who the business was because we had signed a non-disclosure agreement. But the veil is going to be lifted soon at the next board meeting.
Well, you said Fortune 10, so it doesn't make it difficult to guess when it's warehouse and distribution.
Yeah.
So,
It's a medical-related company.
Tony, you said that you do have a piece of land to accommodate 400,000 square feet?
Well, yeah, their building has already been approved. I should mention that. They've gone through the building approval process. They identified sites in several states and several sites within Illinois. This was not like a one phone call and then they submitted plans. This was probably a dozen meetings and conference calls and people flying in. They're site selection consultants from Arizona, and he travels the whole world. So, I mean, it's kind of this was a true site selection process.
so with this being on the Cook County portion, I'm assuming, which you shouldn't do, but I'm assuming they're going to be accessing off of West Bartlett Road?
Yeah, I mean, they're coming off of, I believe, West Bartlett Road. I mean, it's right off of there.
Are there?
It's off of Munger.
Are there plans then to improve the roads there?
You know what, I can't speak to the road aspect of it very
So
much.
you're talking about
We've gone through the
400,000
entire
foot
zoning
warehouse and distribution center. I'm assuming those are not drones coming in and out of it.
No, they'll have up to 200 employees when they get up to full
Okay,
speed.
and trucks.
Trucks, lots of trucks.
Okay, that's why I'm concerned about
Yeah.
development like that and how it's going to impact, one, the community, and two, traffic.
But if I may, it was, they went before the Plan Commission, and the village board extensively reviewed their plans. The planning staff went over that. In terms of when I talk about it from a site selection standpoint, I don't really ever talk about their site plan with them.
Okay.
I've seen it, but our discussions from the administration standpoint, like when Scott and I meet with them, we talk about the things like the size of the investment, the building, how many employees. It'll be mostly full-time employees.
Great.
And, it's not going to start at 200. Their plans are to start around 70, and their plans, I think, are to get to 200 employees. I can't remember, I think by 2022. Sounds familiar?
Oh, there's enough land for parking and distribution and,
They got a parking variance. I mean, they got a parking variance. The parking, I'm just going to talk about parking for a minute. The parking requirements for industrial are somewhat antiquated. They're from days before there was so much technology. And for a 400,000 square foot building, you might think that 800 people might work there. But for a building of that size, 200 employees is fairly typical. There's buildings that big that have less employees than that.
Sure.
So, but yeah, they've looked at the road a lot and all that. That wasn't part of my review of it. I didn't want to skip something. I went last week to a trade show called Select Chicago. This is a show that focuses on what in the economic development world they call FDI, which is foreign direct investment. I met with trade delegates from, I think, maybe a dozen different countries. It was interesting. The biggest country that invests in our community, Germany, I didn't run into anybody. I was looking all over the place for a German trade delegate, but I don't think any of them were there. But met people from all different countries, people from Eastern Europe, a lot of Asian trade representatives. This is the second year we've had that show. Joey went last year with me, and I spoke at it about the importance of foreign direct investment in Bartlett. And there was some keen interest, in the town for sure. Those 2 new buildings that Logistics Property Group got approved and that they're starting, I went there mostly to promote those buildings. So I wanted to mention that, since I didn't put a marketing update, that was the part of our marketing plan now. That didn't used to be in the marketing plan, but now we have a way to reach directly to foreign investors, and they're big investors. Some of them invest on behalf of a royal company. Some of them have so much oil money that they don't know what to do with it, and we're trying to, not just bring in foreign investors, but to let them know that there are sites available here. The site that I told people about that generated the most interest from one investor was our downtown TOD Site E for apartments. I met an apartment developer with money coming out of Turkey. So anyhow, wanted to mention that. 2 more quick things. One, we are working with another restaurateur, 120 Bartlett Avenue. We refer to that as the Mare Building, and those of you who've been in town for a long time may remember Pound Cake's Bakery, located about midway between TL's and JC's. It's a beautiful building. They did a complete renovation of it in 2010, the last year of our downtown TIF. So I had every receipt that I presented here in 2010 of all the improvements that they did. And now somebody's going to do an equal or greater amount of improvements to that building in 2019. Scott's been working with him extensively and converting it to a bar and grill with outdoor beer garden, karaoke, live music. It's an exciting project. You'll see him here in front of you probably within the next few months.
Great.
And then I have just one last thing. I'll turn it over. Why don't you tell them about the microbrewery coming? So, more brewing. We've been talking about it here for quite a while. You all remember Lucky Jack's and the long, painful process and the many night meetings of talking about what do we do about Lucky Jack's? Well, what the village did, but took a number of years, was took the owners to court, condemned the property that took about 2 years, took possession of the property, demolished the building, and then started fielding calls and marketing the site. And as luck would have it, a broker that we've worked with for years was shopping around more brewing, looking at, that was not the first site or even the second or third that they looked at. So ultimately, it's a big win for the village because we took over that site and were able to offer it to them quickly without too much messing around for a very good price. Really, the main reason we're able to get that is because the village took control of that land and was able to offer it to them. And after many months and many rumors and many discussions, they have submitted formal plans that have been reviewed probably faster than any plans are getting reviewed. Pretty happy to say that project is still progressing, and we expect it to move forward in the coming months.
Those were, I mentioned earlier about Manny. the folks at Moore is another group that, in addition to Manny and Logistics Property, that we sat down with in the fall of 2017.
Right, all these take about 2 years. Logistics, Property, Project Oak, Manny, and more. There's probably a few that I'm forgetting. And they don't all these people we meet with and work with don't always come to fruition. And going back to the much coveted grocer we just talked about, if we can get that, we're talking about like 10 years we've been trying to get these guys in town.
I just have two really little things. One kind of off the conversation of asking about the signage. As we were walking around town, we're noticing a lot of those banners, like signage or like ones that say slots. And it just seems like we have so many awesome new places coming in. I just thought it kind of like took away from like the look of Bartlett. Just wondering if there's anything that the village could look into or if that's just accepted.
I want to look into the code for that. There's a woman in our planning and development department who handles all signage, and I know that they're allowed because people have asked me. For instance, Subway might call me and say, well, Kumon has it, are they allowed? And then we'll say, look into the code and call somebody and find out. What I want to find out is if they're allowed on a temporary or permanent basis, because some of those I think have been there for more than a
They're
year.
getting worn out.
For a
Right.
couple of years.
Yeah, they're dingy.
And then also, in our quest to be business friendly, we want to help them increase their visibility. And in particular, the businesses that have those at I'm going to have to stop saying Bartlett Plaza, but old habits die hard. At the streets of Bartlett, those are businesses that didn't have any slots on the sign. And a lot of them have expressed their great displeasure to me and other staff over the years of why one business might be on the ground sign but not another. And I think most of those are the businesses that weren't on the sign. One great thing about what Manny's doing is 2 new signs that will have every business on it.
Yeah. That,
So we take your point, though. I do want to look into it. We'll contact Susan to find out, are they allowed permanently? Is it a temporary sign? How does it work? Because like some of them have been up there for a while.
And I can see the use of those, especially those tall banner type signs. I can see those for, promotional opportunities but yeah, some of them have been up there, what I would describe
been
as being
years.
permanent.
Yeah.
And again, just really detracting from the family friendliness downtown.
yeah,
I just know that they're allowed, but I don't know the parameters. I think they're all this exact same height, and I think that's the only rule I've ever heard about it is it's something about the height.
Yeah, just like even the ones like right here, like where it seems like it's almost just like like the little park in front of like O'Hare's and stuff, and they're like dotting
Right.
the walkway. And,
Yeah.
And then the only other question I had was with the one BEDA grant we sent through for the Indian restaurant or the grocer.
That one, yes.
How is
I've
that?
met with him twice recently, and Scott and I both met with him, I think maybe just 2 or 3 weeks ago. The long story short on him is that the village approved a $15,000 grant for a project that was running, I don't remember exactly, but about $70,000 total, maybe 75. And he simply has had a large amount of challenge in getting the financing in order. And we had a meeting with him maybe just 2 weeks ago to urge him to do it and to let him know that it's difficult for us accounting-wise to approve it. It was approved for the last budget year. So for Manny's $50,000 grant that was approved last year, we carried over that amount to this year. But we can't carry over the whole amount every year for everybody. So we told him that he really should get started on it very, very soon. And he indicated to us that he had a plan to gain the financing, which was to sell a little piece of land that he owns. So we're not entirely convinced he's going to go through with that project. We've never rescinded a BEDA grant, but that one might be the first one.
Well, I think that's something that we discussed early on with the BEDA program is a proviso that there is a timeframe from which a project starts. Am I to believe then that they've kind of exceeded that timeline that was proposed?
Well, with his building
Should say
permit,
deadline.
not yet.
Okay.
For the BEDA grant, when he got the BEDA grant was probably around the same time when Manny came in last year, maybe last October.
Okay.
Or something like that. We don't want to rescind it. It's a very small grant for a very small project for a husband and wife, mom and pop business.
Well,
They
perhaps-
simply have had a really difficult time. They propose some kind of alternate financing to us. We just tell him he has to do the project first, pay for the project first, and then we rebate it. We can't front any money with this program.
Well, is it prudent? I think particularly when I think about Mr. Ophidia's project, which is sailing along, and
Right.
he's going to continue to be able to, find tenants, and if there's an opportunity to have his tenants even apply for grants for any improvements to their structure, is it prudent to tell the owners of, I believe, is it Siri? Or
It's called Siri Indian
Great.
Grocery, yeah.
to tell them that they need to perhaps start this by December 1st or December 31st?
That would
In
be
order to
more than,
qualify, otherwise they can reapply once they've secured their funding?
that would be fair, and was our intention, I think, when we went to do a business visit with him recently. If you had been there and seen the great distress that he was under in terms of trying to get this project going, and then promising me every time I come in that he's about to start it, it may just come to that, where we have to give him a date and say, if your building permit expires, then your BEDA grant expires. We had talked also before about people coming in and giving an update. We'd rather just tell you that he's starting his project than to make him come up here and explain
Right,
why he hasn't been
absolutely.
able to.
Right, and I think by letting him know that he needs to start it, otherwise he'll need to reapply. Perhaps that'll even take some pressure off of him to, and again, knowing that once you've secured your funding and you've got and you're underway, then by all means, I suspect there will still be, you said that tonight we just awarded, $65,000 out of how many dollars in the BEDA?
Out of 250.
250?
Yeah,
And again, remind me of our fiscal year for that?
It goes through the end of next April.
Okay,
We have two upcoming projects that'll be restaurant-related, in addition to more that could run into some significant investment, like $300,000 or $400,000. So we'll have some of the larger grant numbers, but part of the beauty of the program and just the way we work and the continuity of staff and the EDC is we talk with these people so we know kind of what they have in mind for their projects before they just submit the application. I can tell you all that Sean Lee, who is the owner of the restaurant TL's, purchased the building that he's been a tenant in for 15 years. So, that's a big project, and he has plans of doing a real nice project there, kind of redeveloping that site and beautifying it. So we take that into consideration. The same thing with him pursuing the property. That was something that took almost as long as Manny, just to buy that building. We called him month after month, encouraging him to do it. And the BEDA grant's part of him deciding to do it. So that's the answer. We budgeted 250, trying to best anticipate what projects would come in, plus the unexpected ones. There's always going to be some unexpected ones.
so if you were to rescind the Siri grant, would that then roll into the grant program for this fiscal year?
We've set aside the 15,000. It's such a small amount. But, yeah, we set it aside. I suppose if it was rescinded, it could be, I don't think we would say that we have 265 now instead of 250.
We would probably let the finance director answer that question, so I can check with him.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, we're trying to get that grant money out.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We don't, we're not.
Absolutely. Well, and
you know.
again, and I think I've expressed this before, and maybe even last fall with Mr. Ophidia, it's like, you know, we've got people coming in and making grant requests, but it's almost like you're putting the cart before the horse. And, you know, I certainly understand their desire to have some type of underwriting for these projects. But I don't want to make sure, I want to make sure that we're not locking up funds that could be available for.
We wouldn't hold somebody back. I think Scott and I would rather both exceed the amount by 15,000 that's been budgeted and, you know, let the, like you said, let the finance director, we'd rather spend it all and then some.
Okay, all right, thank you. Were there any other comments for staff? Is there anything more on new business, Tony?
I think I covered almost all of it.
Perfect, a busy night. So with that, may I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Thank you. Now, all in favor?
Aye.
That's aye. Great, thank you.
Thanks. Did you catch the second on that? Okay. Thank you, everybody.
We already go through a whole bottle of water.
What did you have for dinner?
You know, we just went, I just had, some nachos.